Well, well, well. Welcome to the Little Hut podcast. And of course, you got yours truly, Kimberly F. Brown. And I know a lot of you guys are celebrating Easter today, but hey, the Little Hut podcast will continue to go on. Today, I have a very special show lined up, and I don't know if it's a good thing, bad thing, or indifferent thing. I just know it's something that we have to talk about. But before we get involved with the Little Hut podcast, I got to tell you about our sponsors because this is the way, hey, I get paid. So don't forget that the Little Hut podcast is brought to you by Aletha Johnson of Dream Team Realty. So if you're looking for single homes, commercial property, or condos, please reach out and call Miss Johnson, not today, but tomorrow at 216-375-3681. That's 216-375-3681. And also, if you're looking for soul food today, maybe your family is not cooking, but today is Easter, then of course you can always go to the Flavor Bomb restaurant. Darn right. And go in and ask for Miss Tiffany. And she's located at 3303 Broadway Avenue in Cleveland, 44127. That's the Flavor Bomb Restaurant. You can go there today, get your Easter meal, not just for you, but also too for family members. And once again, she's located at 3303 Broadway Avenue in Cleveland. So be sure to do that and tell them that Kimberly F. Brown on Cleveland of the Little Hut sent you inside of their hut for a nice meal. Yeah. So listen, if you've been following my stories on Newsbreak, you know that recently I wrote a story about a black man who received 500 years in prison. 500 years. He did not kill anybody. He did not beat anybody. And he did not rape anyone. So the question becomes, is this a miscarriage of justice? Or is this simply about sentencing disparity? Or is this about a young black man at the age of 18 who told a white conservative judge to, well, I'm not going to say it, but he said some choice words to the judge that caused him to garner a 500-year sentence. So today, there won't be any shiggity boo, but simply questions that need to be asked. And if you know anything about Kimberly Brown and Brown on Cleveland, I certainly do not mind asking the hard questions. So today, I have family members hanging out inside the Little Hut podcast. And right now, I want to introduce you to his older sister. The guy's name is Frankie Porter. But his older sister and baby sister is hanging out with me today, and we're going to talk to both of them. But right now, I have the older sister, and her name is Twinkie Bell. Welcome, Miss Bell.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Listen, I know that it's been a long struggle for your family, and this has been going on since 1991. And for those people who are not familiar with the issue regarding Frankie Porter, I want to guide them back to 1991 and the mantra and the behavior of the labeling called the Cooler Bandits. Briefly, can you talk about this situation called the Cooler Bandits? And then let's get down to the issue of your little brother, Frankie Porter. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share a very big part of our life concerning my brother Frankie. My name is Twyla Bell, and I am the oldest sister, as you stated, of Frankie's. And in 1991, Frankie and his friends, there were four total, including Frankie, and they robbed several restaurants in the area, and they went on a robbing spree, and they couldn't find them, and they were dubbed the Cooler Bandits because they would place the people in the restaurants inside the coolers as they made their getaway. And it's a very difficult time for my family. We too were not aware of who the Cooler Bandits were. And so when my brother was identified as one of the defendants in the case, it was very difficult for us as a family. But we certainly recognize that he gotten himself in some trouble, but nevertheless he was still belonged to us. He's still my brother and still my parents' son, and we are still standing with him to this day.
Thank you very much. That's very much appreciated. Let me say this. Um, the former councilwoman of Akron's Ward 5, Tyra Mosley, brought this case to my attention. And what was mind boggling is the fact that this young man received a sentence up to 500 years. And to this date, he has been incarcerated for 33 years. And it was four people who were involved in this cooler bandit escapade of robbing various restaurants within, I don't know if it was just Summit County, I don't know how far it reached. But my question is, why did your brother, Frankie Porter, why did he get such a long sentence? And from me studying this, the other three individuals served about what, 10, 15, 20 years in their release. What is it about this case that keeps Frankie Porter from being released? Brown on Cleveland.
Frankie received the stiffest of the penalties. He was not a model. Uh, he was not a model citizen in the court, and he said some disparaging things to the judge,
Mm-hmm.
and as a result of that, he was also deemed the ringleader, and he also um, did not take the plea. And as a
Oh,
result
there
of
was a plea.
there was a plea, and
Okay.
as a result of not taking the plea, he took it to trial. And the other young men did too. They all took it to trial,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if it was a matter of they knew who it was, but didn't. They were upset that they wanted to
Okay.
take it to the trial to draw it out, but we just had no idea that him taking it to trial would wind up with 200 to 500 some years in
Let me ask
prison.
you this. Did Frankie Porter, your brother, did he have a public defender, or was your family able to pay for an attorney to defend him in court?
He had a public defender. My
Okay.
parents were not able to afford an attorney at the time.
Did any of the young men have a private attorney?
The only one that I'm aware that had a private attorney was Donovan.
Donovan. And looking at the documentary, and just for people can understand, if you want to know more about the Cooler Bandits, there's a documentary that I found on YouTube. It was put together by a young man named John Lucas and his wife. So you guys can use that as a reference point. But coming back to you, um, was anyone in the courtroom or any of these guys released earlier than they were supposed to be released because they had a paid attorney?
No.
Okay.
The other guys, as far as I know, the only one that got a earlier release was Donovan, and he had an attorney. His mother had hired an attorney for him.
Mm-hmm.
The other defendants, they um, received stiff penalties too, but they were eligible for parole at 20 years. And so Charlie and Roderick came out in 20 years because their parole date came up.
Okay. So does Frankie have a parole date?
Frankie never had a parole date.
So what do you constitute the reason as to why he does not have a parole date or he never had one?
Well, he had something. It was like 2034
Hmm.
was when he would come up for parole, was something like that.
Brown on Cleveland. Let's talk about Frankie. What type of individual is Frankie? And when you first started talking and you talked about the court case, and I really don't want to go into that, I want to talk about where we are now and how things are going. You made a statement that Frankie was deemed the ringleader.
Hmm.
Under what premise?
Basically, once it all played out in court, that kind of came out in
Hmm.
court. But Frankie,
Was this a gang?
I would
Were they in a gang?
I would not say it was a gang. I think they get that label was given to them as the court as the proceedings went forth. But and that's something that kind of evolved or came out.
Hmm.
Frankie is a leader. He always has been. We had always wished that he would, use his powers for good. He's
Okay.
just that he's a very determined young man, and um, you know, him. He there's about 2 years difference between he and I, and
Okay.
um, that even though we've been separated, the prison sentence has separated us and not allowed us to jail like we were when we were
Hmm.
kids. We are still very very close, still very close, as close as we can be. And though he's been sort of thrown away and
Hmm.
forgotten, we still wait. My family still waits. When he left, I wasn't married. I didn't have children, and I
Okay.
have a grandmother. And so, our family, he's still a part of us. He's still a part of us. No matter how much time he has, we're just still waiting for him.
So I need for my audience to be clear. So, Frankie, answer this. Did he kill anyone?
He killed nobody.
Say it again.
He killed nobody.
So, no one got killed.
No one got killed.
Did Frankie beat anyone?
No.
So, there was no physical harm.
No physical harm to anybody.
Did Frankie rape anyone?
No one raped. No one was physically harmed in any of the robberies. In fact, it is part of at least the court records that they would go in a cooler, but he would be the one that would make the phone call to the police and let them know that people were in the cooler because he didn't want anybody to be hurt. Of course, they didn't know that, but
Correct.
that's his heart though. He would go and notify the authorities that people were in the coolers.
So wait a minute, Brown on Cleveland. Let's. I want people to be very clear. So here you have four teenagers in Summit County
Yes.
who joined together to rob local restaurants,
Yes.
right? And during the robberies, rather than hurt or harm anyone at the scene, they put them in the coolers.
Yes.
Hmm. And after the perpetrators allegedly robbed the place, you mean to tell me that Frankie Porter
Yes.
got on the phone, called the police
Yes.
to tell the police that there had been a robbery and that the people were placed in the coolers?
Yes.
This is what he did.
Yes.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Why do you think that this is almost like a movie, right? This is
Hmm.
like a little cuckoo movie. Why do you think Frankie and his buddies would rob restaurants, place people in the coolers, and then call the police to tell the police that they're in the coolers? What would be the rationale behind it? I mean, one would think that he would want them to be harmed,
Hmm.
right? Why not freeze their tails off? Why even tell that they're in the coolers? What do you think was going through Frankie's mind as his big sister to do that?
Well, I think it speaks to the humanity. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and being young,
Okay.
he's just young and not thinking things clearly, had no idea that it would cost him the rest of his life. But when it played out in court that he would go and call, that is who he is.
Yeah.
It really is who he is. I mean, I wasn't surprised to
Okay.
know that he notified authorities that, hey, somebody, because that's just not him.
Mm-hmm.
Even as a kid, he was just, he's small in stature, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely a big heart.
Brown on Cleveland. That's very interesting because I've never heard anything like that
Yeah.
whatsoever. So even when I saw like parts of the documentary, that part stuck out, to me. So that sort of told me that this is not really like a terror.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a terrible individual.
Mm-hmm.
People are subject to make mistakes, and by no means will I ever put a band aid on what him and his buddies did
Yeah.
under any circumstances. Let me ask you, how long has Frankie been incarcerated?
This is your 33.
I'm sorry?
This is your 33.
For 33 years.
33 years.
Again, he didn't kill anyone.
No.
He did not rape anyone.
No.
He did not physically abuse anyone.
No.
However, people can't argue that he did traumatize
Yes.
someone.
Yes.
Just as if you didn't like dogs, so to speak. And I'm not making light of the situation, but if that's something that you don't like, and all of a sudden, a big ferocious got you, then of course people are going to be traumatized. Do you think that by Frankie receiving 500 years, that justice was served for the victims? Brown o' Cleveland.
Over the years, we, as a family,
Mm-hmm.
have had to some reckoning. Because it is my brother, it is my parents'
Yes.
son, and we definitely believe that Frankie should have been he should have been punished for his crime.
Mm-hmm.
It's at the point to where how much is too much. I mean, people are coming in and out with less
Okay.
than, and Frankie still remains. No one is saying that he wasn't guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's saying that he didn't do it,
Okay.
and we're not even lessening the fact that there were some emotional, the trauma that you just alluded to. There's
Mm-hmm.
no doubt, but 33 years, I mean, he should be given an opportunity to come and prove himself
Mm-hmm.
as a law-abiding citizen.
Brown o' Cleveland. You know what's even mind-boggling to me is with everything that goes on today in this here United States of America. You have people out there carjacking people, they're raping people, they're killing people. And we just had a situation here in the city of Cleveland where a young man killed his fiance and he got 24 years. And after 24 years, he can actually, I guess, file for parole. You have young people out here carjacking people by way of guns. And these people get not just one chance, they get two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 chances. And some of the rationale behind the chances is because they're saying that the jails and the prisons are too full. But on another spectrum, you got people like Mr. Porter, Frankie Porter, who served 33 years and he served his time. And in my opinion, that bed should be empty looking for someone else who just committed a crime to take that space.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the population where people have been wrongfully accused and they're occupying space that they should never occupy. And you letting the ill elements that are running rampant right now, terrorizing our communities, you're giving them all these chances, but the people who rightfully deserve a chance because they served their time or because they shouldn't be in the first place, they can't even get a break to get a second chance,
Mm-hmm.
let alone the first chance.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then you got systems talking about rehabilitation, or some people need to be habilitated because you can't rehabilitate them if they've never been habilitated. And what I mean by that is that if they've never been law abiding citizens, if they've never been civically minded, how do you take a person like that and turn them into a responsible person in society where people don't mind living around them because they know they'll be safe?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of things, but I want to ask you this because I want to talk to your younger sister about this case. First of all, how long is too long, if you can answer that? And do you believe that there has been a miscarriage of justice when it comes to your brother, Frankie Porter Brown on Cleveland.
With this juncture, this is too long. It is. It is at the point to where it's ridiculous. Especially when you look, if you're comparing people who have done some heinous crimes
Yes.
to, and they get out to come back in. It's just, and most of the time when we share our brother's story, people look at us like, there's no way somebody's dead. You're just not telling us the truth. There's no
Mm-hmm.
way he raped somebody. There's no way somebody was hurt. We tell them nobody was physically harmed. Not, again, to diminish the
Correct.
emotional effect that someone that they may have had, but um, it's getting, it's ridiculous at this point. It
Brown
really
on
is.
Cleveland, I appreciate it. Is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners of the Little Hut podcast?
I would like to share that as you listen and as you hear, and even as you watch the Cooler Bandit film,
Mm-hmm.
I want everybody to know that he belongs to somebody.
Okay.
Somebody, we, his family, we're waiting. We've been waiting. We laid my mother to rest about 4 years ago, and she
Mm.
died believing he would be free. And we are prepared to continue this journey, to continue this fight, and we will not be settled until Frankie is free. And whatever it takes, if it takes us talking, whatever it takes, we will do it, and we're willing to do it.
Once again, I am talking with Frankie Porter's older sister, uh, Twyla Bell. And we're talking about an incident that occurred back in 1991 that caused an 18-year-old to get a sentence anywhere from 200 to 500 years maximum, which in fact we know that if he was to serve 500, it would never come into reality because he would not be here. Again, let me stress that Kimberly Brown, Brown on Cleveland, I have no dogs in this fight whatsoever. It's simply about this term called justice. What is it? Dealing with this situation regarding Frankie Porter, is there a miscarriage of justice? Thank you very much, Mrs. Bell. I
Thank
am
you.
going to talk with your sister, Miss Weems. So I'm going to have you change chairs with her and we will continue this discussion. One thing that I'm trying to find out about this situation is whether this is an issue of sentencing disparity. Is this about abuse of power by the Ohio Parole Board? Is this about blatant neglect and denial? Or is the sentence about Frankie Porter, about a young black male telling a conservative white judge to do something so egregious? Did the white judge, who's no longer here, is this about the judge getting his feelings hurt? Is it because a young black male decided to be disrespectful in the courtroom? What is the real rationale behind this 500-year sentence? When I look at people like TJ Lane, who shot up Chardon High School and killed numerous students, he did not get 500 years. Is it about the man who killed his fiancee in the city of Warrensville? He got 24 years with the possibility of parole. What is it about Frankie Porter that commanded and demanded a 500-year sentence? Currently, he's already served 33 years. How long is long enough? How long is too long. This is Brown on Cleveland. I have in front of me now his baby sister, Miss Weems. And first of all, let me welcome you to the Little Hut Podcast.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. We've heard from your sister Twyla. Maybe you can tell us what is it about this case that has garnered very little attention, not just from constituents in the city of Akron, but across the nation. Brown on Cleveland.
I just think it's just a matter of people not really looking at it or even entertaining it because it's not something that has happened to them. If I'm being honest,
Be honest.
I probably, if it wasn't my family, I don't know. Maybe I too would look at it like, oh man, that's horrible, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you know, you go about your way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate that um, we live in a world like that, and it's unfortunate that sometimes we do think like that. But I think that has a lot to do with it.
Hmm. What is it that you would like to see happen in this particular situation? After all, he's already been incarcerated for 33 years.
I would like for my brother to see freedom. I
Hmm.
would like for him to, you know, I talk to him all the time, and you know, it's just the little things in life that he hasn't been able to enjoy. You know, um, when I'm talking to him, you know, a lot of times me and my husband, we're just riding in the car,
Okay.
and he's like, "Man, Fanch, you know, I would love to just be in the back seat with you guys, you know,
Hmm.
just laughing, just joking, just having a really good time." Or if I'm at the gym, he'll say, you know, man, Fan, I wish I could go to the gym. Man, I can't wait till I, you know, get the opportunity if I ever get out of here and just, you know, just go to the gym. You know, just simple things that we take for granted every
Okay.
single day are the very things that he just hasn't had the opportunity to enjoy.
Very good. What is it, if you could say anything to Governor Mike DeWine, because ultimately it boils down to his decision. If you could say anything to the Ohio Parole Board, who's appointed, if you could say anything to the Director of Corrections and Rehabilitative Services, what would you say and why would you say it? And what message would you give them regarding Frankie Porter?
I would just say, look at the situation and entertain the fact that if it wasn't for God's grace, it could be your son,
Mm-hmm.
or it could be your nephew, or it could be your grandson, or whatever, you know, whatever the situation would be, you know. And I would just ask that they would just open up their hearts, and those who have the opportunity to make a change in this situation for them to do so. You know, he's been in there long enough, um, and I would just ask that they would just open their hearts and their minds and just put themselves in our situation.
Let me ask you, how long is too long or long enough?
Well, I would definitely say it's long enough. My brother, he, you know, he hasn't taken the life of anybody. And again, not that we're downplaying anything that happened to his victims and downplaying anything that he's done, but he hasn't taken a life. But at this point, it's almost as though they want to take his life. You know, he's 51
Mm-hmm.
right now. You know, he was in there. He's been in there ever since he's been 18 years old. You know, and so at this point, I just don't know what else they could want from him. You know, considering again, you know, he didn't take a life, he didn't rape anyone, he didn't do
Mm-hmm.
anything of that nature um, to garner this type of punishment.
Tell me, where's your support coming from? Let's talk about the pastors in Summit County, the black pastors in Summit County, the white pastors in Summit County, the activists in Summit County, your council people, your Congress people, your state rep, your state senators. Tell me about the support, whether or not you are getting a helping hand on this sentencing disparity. Brown on Cleveland.
No, it's been pretty quiet. Even when his the documentary came out, there just hasn't been a lot of traction there. Out of anything that anyone that you've named, we haven't had a lot of responses there. So it's been pretty quiet, and at this point, it's been completely dead.
Are you guys giving up?
No, no, we never give up. No,
Take your time.
my mom, she died believing that he was going to get out of there,
Mm-hmm.
and we will not give up until he does. And if God, as God lays us each to rest, who's ever living at that time, they will continue on the fight. So as he sees fit to put each one of us to rest, the next generation will definitely pick up the cause. We're a very close family, and
Mm-hmm.
and we believe one day that Frankie will get out. So we'll always fight until there's none of us left.
If there's anything that you would like to express to any community member who may be going through a similar situation, even if they're not, because at the end of the day, we are all impacted by that situation. What would be your ultimate message to them, Brown on Cleveland?
I would just say, keep up the fight. If they're going through it, um, just keep up the fight, keep trying to be heard, and just stay in prayer,
Very good.
because ultimately God is the one that's going to open up those prison doors.
Very good. Is there anything else you would like to share on behalf of your family?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to have this platform. Like I said before, his story has, it's pretty much been dead, and we felt like they've thrown away the key. But we serve we serve a God that will raise people in their sleep. And so while our brother and my dad's son is
Mm-hmm.
still in the penitentiary, and they might want to do away with him, or they might think that he's not worth taking another look at. We know that we serve a God who never forgets. And so we know, as long as he sits high and he looks low, that there's always going to be a chance that Frankie's going to see freedom.
Thank you very much. Once again, you've been listening to Brown on Cleveland and the Little Hut podcast, talking about Mr. Frankie Porter. I want you guys to go on YouTube if you can, so you can get caught up on this story. The story is labeled under The Cooler Bandit. And today I've had the privilege on this Easter. See, time still goes on. You guys are eating, you guys are enjoying yourselves. And my prayers that all of your family members are at the table. But what about the table where justice has not been served? The question becomes, how long is too long that our brothers, sisters, cousins, mothers, and fathers must maintain that empty seat? That's a question. I thank his sisters, Twyla and Fanta, for coming inside of the little hut, because I know it is not easy and the journey is very difficult. We know that people are going through a lot of stuff in their lives. And one thing I have never really understood is, if you think that situations and circumstances do not, does not impact you because it's not your relative, you are absolutely wrong. There's something called miscarriage of justice. There's something called sexism, racism, and ism. There's something called the Ohio Parole Board that people sit on because they are appointed by governors of states. There's something called due diligence. There's something called due process of law. There's something called incarceration. There's something called consequences, punishments, second chances, and freedom. The question today becomes, how long is too long? Frankie Porter is serving a 500 years sentence. And as of today, he's been incarcerated for 33 years. Let me reiterate, he did not kill anyone. He did not physically abuse anyone. And he damn sure did not rape anyone. How long is too long? Is this case, is this situation about a young black male who disrespected a white conservative man who served on the bench as a judge that contributed to the increase of a sentence to be served? I don't know. I don't know. But do this for me. I want you to continue to follow my stories on Newsbreak under Brown, 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 simply Brown on Cleveland. We'll upload the podcast, share the podcast, watch the podcast. Inbox me with your questions, comments, and concerns. Let me know if this sentence is a straight injustice. I want to hear from you. But understand this, if you are a pastor, if you are an elected official, be it on a state level or federal level, you will receive, I'm being proactive, being transparent, in the next 7 to 10 days, you will receive a correspondence from Brown on Cleveland. Hey, listen, my time is up. I got to go. 30 minutes of Brown on Cleveland, that's all you get. So as always, I got to say goodbye. Have a great holiday. I know that you don't like me. 9 times out of 10, I don't like you either. Don't. But listen, right is right, wrong is wrong. I will see you on another podcast as I invite people inside my little hut. You guys have a great day. Enjoy your family, but this is for me. I gotta go. Have a great holiday. Bye.